What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Get the Bag podcast, episode 8. I just can't believe I blinked. It's already February. It's almost March. What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Claudia Castro. Got my co-host, Tim Park.
Hey, fam.
What's going on? Yeah, I see some people in the building.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm super excited for today's episode, near and dear. But before we get all into that, make sure you hit the like, subscribe, follow us on IG, because we're dropping value every week. But it helps with the algorithm, so we always like to mention that. But for today's episode, it's really interesting. We were just having a conversation before we got on, talking about land, wholesaling land. A lot of people don't think you can wholesale land or don't know how it works. They overcomplicate it like everything. But we have a special guest today who really has specialized in wholesaling land. We had him on last year. Super proud to have like someone on again who I can call like a great friend. My guy's from Brooklyn, New York. He's a serial entrepreneur. I believe he started wholesaling sometime around 2020. He's part of Chris Jefferson's Charge Up program. Shout out to the U, because I know some people are on here. But like anyone starting out, he started wholesaling residential properties. And, we're going to uncover what made him make the switch. But fast forward to now, he's closing deals consistently. You'll catch him on IG, starting to post about land and wholesaling land. Without further ado, let's welcome Charles McEwan to the Get the Bag podcast. What's going on, bro?
What's going on? I love the introduction and I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. You're so special. We had to bring you back.
Yeah, I know, right?
I do appreciate that. Like I mentioned, I'm definitely excited because I got a lot of information, good, valuable information to share with your audience for sure. As I told you guys in the backstage, I got some notes I'm just looking at right now, glimpsing at, just to give your audience some games so they could go out there if they're looking to get started into the business of land flipping and get started right away. I'm not holding anything back.
Oh, man. Yeah. So make sure you guys who are watching take your notes, whether you're watching it live or when you come back and just come across this video, because wholesaling land, and that's something I've started getting into myself with you, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But there really is, you can easily, and like going to back to the title, how to make $10,000 a month wholesaling land, like that's really easy to do. Like once you establish your process, and people really don't underestimate land. But before we get into all the gems and everything, tell us a little bit about yourself, like your background.
So where do I start? That's the question I'm curious. Where did I start? All right. So, my name is Charles from Brooklyn, New York. I'll be honest with y'all, entrepreneurship wasn't really something that I thought about ever getting into. And the reason why is because I was just always cheap with money. I was really tight with money, never really thought about spending money on anything, and just, saving everything that I have, like to the penny, saving every single dime I possibly can. And then to make a long story short, one day I'm sitting inside of a barbershop, and I came across an ad on my Facebook. And it was an online business, and I don't know why, but something like a spirit in me just said, you know what, start like look into this, just looking pay for it. It was like $50. And me, again, I'm the type of person, I thought everything was a scam back then.
Right.
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, I did go with the program, but it turned out to actually be a scam. And I found this out after I've already spent $2,500 on the course. Ooh. So you pay $50. You kind of get like rolled into the system. You pay $50. Someone give you a call, and then they kind of nurture you into the system. So after 7 days, I paid the $2,500. Didn't hear nothing back from them. To make a long story short, the FTC was actually after them.
Wow. Actually, you're one of those. You're part of one of those.
Yeah.
Wow.
Luckily, though, so when I did the transaction, it literally like happened like midway into it. So as I did the transaction, like that next day, they started getting hit by the FTC. I think everything paused, and I used a credit card, so they were actually able to refund me back my money. And I got back my money. But to make a long story short,
That's a good tip. That's a good tip, though. Like
yeah,
if you do invest in some or in some courses, definitely do it with a credit card because you can always dispute it. Worst case, too.
100%.
absolutely,
100%.
and that's where I started. They gave me a book. It was I think everybody knows the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant. And then once I read those book, guys, literally like my entire perspective of life changed. Like I went from being so cheap to just wanting to just spend money on everything just to get ahead in life. And that's where it started.
I love it.
Wow.
It gave you that entrepreneurial itch. Sounds like.
Yeah, it definitely did. And then, another thing too, in the mix of this, I actually wind up, because again, I said I'm originally from Brooklyn. I wind up moving to Florida. And in Florida, my grandmother, she owns a really nice home out there in a nice neighborhood. And it gave me a different perspective of life as well. Like the average vehicle out there is like Mercedes Benz or a BMW, not even a 4 Series. A 5 or 6 Series is typically like the average thing you'll see out there. So it made me think a lot differently, and I was in a really nice neighborhood. So putting all these things together, I'm like, yeah, I didn't even know life, there's opportunities like this out there in this world. So that's, where my life just completely just took a shift. And then I got into the world of drop shipping, and then that's literally where everything started. Drop shipping. I don't want to get too heavily into that, but drop shipping, I wound up dabbling into that heavily. I lost a lot of money, but I learned a lot of things along the way. And then eventually I got into wholesaling real estate. My uncles always told me about wholesaling real estate, but I never actually got into it. The reason why I got into it is because I had to stop this business, the business of drop shipping, because it was taking so much money out of me and so much time out of me. I wasn't making anything from it, that I had to find another business. I got into the wholesaling game, and it's just been lights out ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So it sounds like, you've gotten through several businesses on it, and then you finally stumbled upon wholesaling real estate. So tell us, I guess, your journey a little bit about that, and then we'll dive a bit deeper into it. But
all right, perfect. So I got in around 2020. It was actually early 2020 I got in. And before I got into, the Chris Jefferson's group, shout out to my guy.
Shout out Chris.
Yeah, definitely. I actually was able to get 4 deals under contract by myself, without any help, and I couldn't close any of them. And the reason why is it could be a various amount of different things, but looking back at it, I was in markets where, wholesaling wasn't prevalent. Like it wasn't a thing in that market. These was very small little areas where real estate just wasn't like that big. They had a few people out here, but it wasn't like, any other one of those areas where wholesaling is like the norm. So I couldn't find any buyers. Nobody wanted the deal. So I wound up joining a course. When I joined Chris Jefferson course, I can't remember the exact date. I believe it was sometime in July that I joined. I don't remember. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but when I joined, eventually I was able to get my first deal, and I closed my first deal. It was actually a house deal, and I got that deal through a fire damage list. And once I had gotten that deal, I was able to get another deal as well, through networking with my peers through Clubhouse, because Clubhouse was something that I was like on all the time. So I was able to leverage that and get my next deal. And then shortly after, I started hearing more and more about land, and then I just started dabbling into it. And I just tested it. I didn't even say, this is something I'm just gonna do. I heard about it, I looked into it, I tested it, and then realized, wow, this is actually a much easier transaction for me to do rather than houses. So I just started going all in, and I never even looked back.
I love it. So it was that shift that somehow you came across a land deal, or like tell us like where was that aha moment where like, let me put all my eggs, all my money into land? Like, talk to us about what that transition was for you to like be like, I'm going all in.
So, again, with land, it was one of those, as I'm marketing with houses, I did come across my first land deal. All right. I had an owner who said, hey, look, I'm not interested in selling my house, but I'll sell my land. He had 2 pieces of land, and he wanted to sell. I wind up not being able to move it, but it made me curious. All right, I didn't even know you can sell land. I was like, oh,
Right.
okay, you can sell land? Okay, let me look a little bit more into this. YouTube University, which most of us do. I got in there, started just diving deep, getting as much information as I possibly could. And to be honest with you, there's just not a lot of information. So, again, I didn't really even learn this from anybody. I just went head first in. So the fact that, I had an opportunity with a land deal, it just opened up my mind like, okay, let me just test this land thing. And then, I started joining clubhouse groups, and then I started hearing more people talking about land. I'm like, oh, this is really a business that you could get into and get busy. So what I did was I just kept connecting with people on Clubhouse, and then eventually realized where those guys was marketing land, like what area, what city, what state, and then I just literally followed them. I said, you know what, those guys are doing business over there. Obviously, there's opportunity. Let me follow them. So I started going into Florida. Florida is actually one of my hot markets. I went into Florida, found a city that was, pretty hot in new constructions. There was a lot of sales of land going on, and then I just got to work.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. I know you got some gems on this one, but I think we need to let the people know like what the difference is between wholesaling just like a single family house to like just land. So what's the main difference in those two?
So the process itself is relatively the same. The biggest difference though is just your reverse engineering it. So it's essentially, instead of you going out to look for prospects first or sellers first, you're actually going to look for builders first, because it just makes the process of wholesaling land a lot more simple. You're going to reach out to a builder and see what they're looking for, find their criteria, and literally just start pulling a list based upon what they're looking for. And the reason why you do that is because it's a much simpler process for them and for yourself as well, because now you're shooting deals to them that they're very highly interested in. They're going to more than likely want to do business with you. But at the end of the day, it just takes away the whole entire process of you going out there and trying to prospect yourself, looking for land that you even know someone is going to buy. I will say this: if you're just going to go out and start prospecting land and don't have a buyer in mind, it is relatively hard to sell land, because it's not just anybody buying land, and land builders buy with the expectation of building a house and reselling it. So they're obviously targeting a certain area to fit their criteria so that they could go ahead and be successful in their business. So again, the biggest difference with houses and land, I personally would just say it's probably just certain processes, but at the end of the day, it's relatively the same. It's not much of a difference.
Right. And I think this is where people overcomplicate it. It is easier, right? Because you don't have to deal with tenants. Who are you kicking out? Are you kicking out the utilities or whatnot? And I think this is where it's although the deal flow or the deal size can vary, right? You can still close like a high assignment fee with land. But in some areas, it just depends, right? It depends on the market and the type of land it is. But I think I think people shy away from it because everybody else is doing residential, right? And people are like, well, land, I don't know what to look for. And that was kind of going to be a follow-up question is like, what are some things to ask in terms of these conversations with sellers, right? Because you don't, when you go through a script of like, in talking to sellers for residential properties, you go, okay, what's the square footage? What's the bedroom, bathroom count? What's a condition? With land, it's pretty simple, but like, how do you go about having these conversations with the sellers that have a land that they're interested in selling?
That's such a good question. So that's like one of my biggest hurdles early on, because going from houses coming into land is like, what do you ask to build rapport? And usually you're leveraging the conditions of the house to build rapport with your sellers.
Exactly.
So with land, it's different because there's not much to talk about. But there are some things in each market, though, it is different. So what I would say first is to find your prospect buyer, because they're going to then be able to educate you on what's going on in the market and what's needed. So whatever it is that they may need on their end to do their due diligence is what you're going to bring back to your seller to ask them questions. That is literally the best way I would go after it. So the traditional questions is, have you done a survey? Have you done a perk test? So you got your feasibility studies. Is the lot buildable? Is the, is a lot buildable? Is it commercial? Is it residential? Is it mixed use? But for the most part, what I found success is just going to my builder, asking them, hey, look, what are like some of the key components that you're looking for with land? Like, what are some things that you have to look into? Do you have to reach out to the city? What are some questions that I need to know? And then I'll take that and bring it back to the seller. And literally, like, that's all it is. You don't have to overcomplicate the process at all. It's relatively simple. So don't even overthink it. And then, you'll learn as time progresses. You're just going to have to find ways to build rapport with sellers. And in most cases, again, I'm just being honest with most of your guys, with your audience. There's not too much rapport being built. It's literally, well, does the price work for the seller? Does the price work? Right. Let's get the deal done. That's honestly what I'm seeing in my personal business. But in some cases, there are some people who are more willing to open up, where you can ask them, hey, what's the reason that you're selling? So in my business, we do have a process that allows me to get on the phone after my VA already reached out to them to say, hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, they did, my VA, you spoke to my VA early on. What are some reasons why you're interested in selling? And then I could go ahead and start building a report, leaning into what the builder told me to start asking and start looking into.
That's such a great process in going about it, because I don't know, land is not, there's no attachments to it. So maybe that's what you're talking about. Like, why, like, there could be where it's like, oh, I bought this for my late, I don't know, it just depends on what that is. But I think it's so important still, like, to establish some form of rapport, because it'll make it so much easier if you have to come back and reduce the price, or you really want to get a good price point. But I really liked what you mentioned, and how you really are reverse engineering your process, and going to builders first, going to buyers first. And I think we mentioned this in a previous episode, whether you're doing residential, whatever, especially in this market, go to where the money's at. Go ask the buyers first on what areas are you buying? Are you still buying? Because it could be like you and I, right, have been working on some deals, and you're like, some of the builders you chatted with, you're like, we're not buying right now, we're on pause, but we will pick it back up in 2023 or whatever. So it's good to constantly check in with your buyers and your builders to see where you're at and what's going on in your market, because then you have a good understanding of what's going on in the area as well. So I think anybody listening, go to the money first, reach out to those builders, reach out to those buyers, get their criteria, because then you can always take that back to the sellers. You mentioned as well, perk and survey tests. What for people who don't know, what the hell is that?
So a perk test, with the perk test, you're testing the density of the soil. And with the survey, you're just getting like a good layout of like, essentially like the square footage of the lot, right? Like kind of checking off your parameters to make sure like this is kind of where my where my land is and where I can build around. And that's essentially it. So it's not really, too complicated with the two things. And I'm gonna be honest with you, most local builders, they're not actually doing a perk test or doing a survey. But the big builders, some of them, they actually do that stuff. So it really just depends. So I found the ones that need like 45-day due diligence, 60-day close, or maybe 60-day due diligence, 90-day close. Those guys they're the ones that's actually doing those extra tests that's needed to make sure that the land is actually up to par to their standing, for them to actually build on it. But for the most part, like the local builders are not actually doing that from what I'm experiencing.
Right. And when you're talking to these builders, how did you kind of get your vocabulary up to where you're talking the same language as them, like RTIs and different things that these are kind of buzzwords to let them know that you are, and kind of an expert in this field of land and stuff. So did that take you a while, or did you kind of learned as you go, or how did that come about?
Tim, that's a great question. Honestly, I kept it extremely basic. I reached out to builders and told them exactly what we specialize in, what we do, and the value we're trying to provide to them. And then I allowed them to actually educate me on what it is that they need. I didn't go in there as the guy who knew everything, because I didn't know everything, and I'm still learning. I have a lot to learn. So every time I go and I'm speaking to a new builder, whether it's a local builder or a bigger builder, I let them know exactly what my intentions are and what I plan on doing. And this way, they're like, all right, perfect. I would like to work with you. Here's what I need, and this is what I'm looking for. And here's some information that you need. That's really it.
That's dope. That's perfect. I mean, because you just don't, like, with people they're like, what do I say? Or, like with you just kept it simple. What is your criteria? And then let them talk, because you'll kind of learn from them, because they'll kind of, verbal vomit all over, what they want. Right.
They will.
Right.
I agree, because these guys, they need you. Most times they're buying their deals off the MLS, and a lot of times the prices are completely overpriced. So when you let them know the service that you're providing, and that you can be of service to them, they're more than willing to play ball with you. You know what I mean? So that's literally what I've been seeing a lot of success with. So as far as the lingo, once I learned something that's traditionally like in one particular area, I'll then take that lingo and move it on to the next builder. And just start asking them questions again. Like, I don't even go into the conversation acting as if I know everything. So let's just say I got to look at a lot of information from one builder to the next builder. I may not relay that same information over to them, because their processes and systems may be a little bit different, but I'll allow them to give me some information, or I'll be like, oh, okay, you're talking about this. And then that's but like, okay, he probably have some understanding of what our process or systems is, or what it is that we're doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's funny, because we try to complicate having conversations with buyers, builders. It's really the same thing as we talk to sellers. Ask open-ended questions.
That's it.
And that's how you get them talking, gather information, and then take it back. And I'm sure you've saved a ton of money too doing it this way, reverse engineering, because you're saying, like, don't pull the list first. Like, you can do the hack and everything, the list source hack, but go direct to the source and ask them what areas are they buying in, and then pull a list off of that. Like, it's so simple. It's like, it's too simple almost. Like, people are like, no, it can't be that simple. Like, I must have to do this and that and go through hoops. But I love that you mentioned that. And I mean, on top of that, I know, specifically what you're doing in your business as well is working with realtors too.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big part with like land, especially in finding more so like retail buyers as well.
Yep. So I am leveraging realtors as well. Guys, do not. I actually love working with realtors who understand the process of what you're doing. So most of them won't understand it, but there are a few that definitely understand what you're doing. And you definitely want to make sure you have them by your side and working directly with you, because they could be of value to you, especially because you're bringing value to them. They have a lot of connections, the builders, the local builders that they work with, or even the bigger building companies that they work with. They look at realtors as experts. They look at
Mm-hmm.
they look at them as their go-to. Like, hey, if that realtor is bringing me something, that this must be it. So I leverage their
Right.
connections and their resources, and I bring them value. In return, they bring me value. So I absolutely love
Right.
working with them.
Yeah, yeah, tell me if I'm wrong here, but like on the realtor side, it's more like they may have, like you're saying, the relationship with the builder. So their relationship is after it's built, they sell it as a connection because as more they build, the more they're listing the house after it's built. So, connecting with a listing agent that has connection with the builder is like what you're talking about there, right? Correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. And I'll go to say this: there's a few realtors out there as well. They're not even going to ask for a commission because they know that once
Mm-hmm.
the builder finished building, they're going to get that listing, so they're going to be able to make
Right.
money on the back end. All right. So in most cases, I don't even go into the conversation speaking to them about paying them a commission unless they mention it. I'm more than happy to do so. Because at the end of the day, whether or not you pay them a commission, they're still going to be making money from the deal when the builder is done building on the property. So again,
Right.
it's just providing value in both ways. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I think I made a post on this the other day where realtors are having to quit because they're not
Mm-hmm.
closing any deals. And this is why I keep saying, like, realtors should be working with wholesalers, wholesalers should be working with realtors. You can both make money. I mean, there's just also like the stigma of like working with wholesalers, and people are just stuck in their old ways, which you and I kind of interfere with one deal where a realtor was just like kind of a, not difficult, but didn't make things easy because they just didn't understand the process. So if you're a realtor out there and you're out in Florida and maybe have land buyers, like, you should be reaching out to Chuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not that complicated, guys. Like, there's ways that you can get paid on the front end and back end.
Yeah.
So, it's people just make things difficult for themselves when they really don't have to. So I just had to add in the agent aspect because that's a big part in like land, in getting deals across the table. But one thing I did want to kind of talk to you about is also your business structure.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of done some changes that I'm sure has helped get you consistent deal flow at this point. And now you're now at the process where, okay, I'm closing consistent deals or at least one deal a month. I'm trying to take it to the next level and closing several deals a month. Like, what are some changes you've done in your business, or like how have you structured it to get to that point?
So, for one, I actually have a VA who is constantly sourcing builders every single day. Like right now, she's actively calling the list of builders that she generated, which is roughly over 800. So we're working in a new market. So she's doing that every single day. And that's bringing me more opportunities because now I'm able to connect with more people who are looking for more opportunities. And then I can leverage, what they're looking for and actually start sourcing opportunities for them. So I'm keeping my team small. I'm
Yeah.
exactly what Chris is teaching us and keeping my team small. Um, I don't want a huge team at all. So what I'm able to do is actually, pay these guys more, and in return, because I'm paying them more bonuses or bigger bonuses is being cut out. They're providing value back to me. So right now we got two cold callers. I'm looking into bringing a VA who's going to be handling SMS. Right now I have a guy from the U who's helping me out with that because I was handling that majority of the time. So I did
Mhm.
change around my process and systems around SMSs. Um, and I'm still working that through because I really wanted a nice tight niched system in place. So essentially what I also started doing was adding in, I forgot exactly what Chris called it, but I have a prospector, a
Oh,
setter,
a setter.
yeah, and then I have like my acquisitions person, which essentially is me right now. So I have a funnel in which leads are coming in. So I'm only talking to people who actively want to sell. I'm not dealing with people who are asking for overpriced properties, but at the same time, I'm still giving them an offer and then keeping them in my system. Um,
Hmm.
you know, so I'll give them an offer and I keep them in my system. My system is set up where essentially it is on autopilot. So once they're in my system, I put them on like in autopilot, and the system constantly is hitting them every single time. So it's gonna say, hey, how's it going, John? Have you thought about my offer within a month, 2 months, and so on? It just keeps hitting them every single time. That's another thing I did add into. I paid for, and again, I'm just giving you guys some free game, giving your audience. So I paid for some automation for my marketing, my software that I use, which is called Marketing Plex. So essentially, when a lead comes in, depending on their response, the system is automatically, responding back to them. But the beauty about what my system is doing, essentially, I'm only talking to people who are interested in selling, right? Once they tell me that they're interested in selling, I could go ahead and move them to another category within the system that's going to constantly be hitting them with more automations, just to allow me to take advantage of constantly staying in front of them. Everybody who don't respond to me, my system is constantly hitting them every single, whether it's every 2 weeks to a month. I'm keeping everybody in my system, every data that I paid for in rotation. I'm honing in on my follow-up systems pretty tough. So that's essentially what I'm doing in my business.
I love that, man. If you guys are you guys liking what you're hearing? I want to make sure you guys are taking notes, because what Chuck just laid out is literally you can also apply in your business. Now, the automation portion, I'm sure, took some time to build that out and get a good understanding. But you understood that. Like, you understood, hey, like, I'm in here for the long game. And I think that's the problem too, is like people are too impatient, because we just live in a world that's just a short attention span. People want things, quick gratification. But things, if you want to do things right, you have to build it right from the beginning. And sometimes it takes you time. So if you have to take a week off of whatever to focus on your systems, so things are running smoothly once things are kicking off, that is worth it, because you're in it for the long game. And who knows, I know, Chuck, you and I have been like chopping it up on the phone for the past over a year at least. And you were kind of taking me through your iterations too. You're like, well, I'm starting here, or I'm still tweaking this area here. And now you're at a space where you're like, okay, it's pretty automated. I may make some changes here and there, but once it's set, you don't have to like make anything crazy. Like, it's set.
You're just adding to it every single day. I'll be honest with you guys. So there's two things that, I had to take a step back and actually realize, all right, this is what I need in order for my business to start picking up. So for one is hiring the VA to help me build a builders list. That's for one. So it took about 2 to 3 months strong of me staying consistent with work, finding builders every single day. That's something you got to stay very consistent with. Before I even get off that subject, this is something I definitely want to share with your audience. You really only need one builder to run up a bag, literally. And one builder is good enough for you to be in 5 to 6 different markets in one particular state, and they would literally buy 50 to 100 deals that you have if they're buying in that type of value. You only need one builder. You do not need a bunch of different builders. But the reason why I'm constantly reaching out to new builders is because things are changing every single day. The market things are changing. The market isn't looking too pretty. So because of that, I'm staying ahead of the curve. I'm just adjusting my business to that. And again, I want to connect with so many different people that I can continue to grow and not stay stagnant with just one particular builder. So that's why I'm constantly building out. And to your point with the automation, that took me roughly a month and a half for me to even get done. So I realized this is the long game. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint.
Exactly.
So that's exactly the way I'm looking at
it. Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I wanted to go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, if you want, I could share some stuff with you guys, but go ahead and.
Are you about to share some sauce?
No, I was going to ask about. No, go ahead. We can leave the question till later. So go ahead and share some sauce.
All right. So some stuff I just want to share with your audience. So there are 3 types of builders. You got a custom home builder, a track home builder, and a spec home builder. Each builder serves a different purpose. Your custom home builder, they work primarily with individuals who are looking to like build a personalized home. Now, a lot of those guys, they don't actually work, they don't actually purchase land directly, but like a handful do, and you could find them, they're out there. And then you have your track home builders. Track home builders, they typically buy larger acres of parcels, so like an acre or more to build communities. And then you have your spec home builders, which is builders that I primarily focus on, which is builders who are looking for those infilled lots, who are buying them to build a home and resell them on the market. So I wanted to share that with your audience as well.
Yeah, that's really great, because as I started kind of getting into it, I was also kind of doing some research on like what the difference is. And on the track home, I think you said, yeah, track home builders, those you can get some pretty high assignment fees for that, because you're dealing with a large acreage. And I know people who've closed like almost 6-figure deals dealing with wholesaling those.
Yeah, huge. Those guys are where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. But just keep in mind, when you're dealing with track home builders, it does take some time to close deals with them.
Right, the due diligence.
Yeah, the due diligence is very long. So on average, you're looking for like a year out with a closing. But if you're building this snowball effect with so many different deals, it's just going to be consistent, time after time. So that's definitely something you want to take into consideration.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and so people understand the track home builders are going to be the people that build multiple houses on one spec of land. Is that correct? Or just what's the difference between that and the other? Yep.
The difference between the track home builders and the spec home builders?
Correct. So people understand that.
The track home builders, they buy bigger acres of land, so 1 or more acres. So typically, on average, though, they're buying 20 to 50 acres of land, and they're building a community to build multiple houses. And then they'll sell those houses individually to homeowners and stuff like that. Those guys' business model is relatively different from a spec home builder. A spec home builder is someone who's coming in and they're buying an infill lot to go ahead and turn around and build a house to sell to a family or whomever may be interested in buying it.
Yeah, those are more common that you see on like the new construction homes of like you go to one of those like markets, it's all done up. And the way I've seen it too is these builders, before they even start literally start building, they'll actually try to sell the prospect of the new construction to a buyer already, just so they have somebody locked in. But I don't know how often that happens. But that's always kind of a really interesting aspect of just land. There's just so many things, like you think of just land, of like whether it's wholesaling or just in general, like in real estate, but there's so many moving pieces to everything. And I think that's why we love real estate so much, is nothing is ever boring. Like you literally learn something every day. Even as I'm sure that you learn something new, and land being your specialty.
Yeah, I learn something new every single day. I don't ever stop learning. With land, again, like I was saying earlier, don't overcomplicate the process. The process is relatively simple. Go out, find your builder first. You go out, find your builder. Once you find your builder, you just reverse engineer the whole entire process. One thing I really love doing is when I reach out to a builder, especially local builders. So local builders right now is like my go-to, because, as you guys know, the market is taking a shift. So when I reach out to those guys, I'll be like, hey, look, I tell them, I pitch to them and tell them exactly what I do and what my intentions is. And then I'll be like, hey, look, can you send me an address of your most recent project? This way I can actually have a better deep dive on what it is that they're looking for. So now I'm looking at what, they're actually buying. I'm looking at what they're actually buying, the square footage, not only just the square footage, I'm kind of taking a look at the area and, understanding why they want to be in that particular pocket. And then I'll go out and actually start driving for dollars virtually. So that's another thing that I'm always doing. I'm not always pulling a list. I'm driving for dollars virtually. And soon I'll be hiring a for that, because that is literally one of my hottest things right now. So it's literally one of my marketing channels where I'm spending the least amount of money and making the highest returns on that.
Right.
I share this with your audience really quick.
That's
So
dope.
I'm pulling a list of 150 people that I drove for dollars in one particular location, right? That my builder was telling me that they buying. I got 3 deals out of that. I skip traced that list for, I think 70 or 80 bucks, and I made over 15 grand.
Wow. And did you text those people, or you just straight up called because it was such a small list?
I called them because it was such a small list. But the most important thing was when I was calling them, because most people, when they get into land, they start, doing a bunch of SMSs. So many people are doing SMS, but they sleep on cold calling. So there's a bunch of people who are not cold calling and not getting touched. So when I was reaching out to these individuals, they never been touched before. And because
that's a bar right there.
Yeah, I was able to leverage that and get deals done.
Yeah, it's funny because you and I are partnering up on some on land too, working land deals together. And I was just like, okay, what list? Tell me what area, because that's what I'm used to too, in like wholesaling properties. And I was like, okay, tell me what areas is your builder buying? What zip codes? And you're like, no. You're like, let me show you the PropStream hack. Let me show you the PropStream virtual driving for dollars. I was like, oh. You're like, yeah, most of my I just download the out of the 10,000 cap that you have with PropStream on the day that you can download. I just do the little line on what area to focus in, and then I just run a list on that. I was like, oh,
that's it.
That was easy. I'm here trying to complicate stuff, and you're like, nah.
Don't do that.
Hold up. Yeah, before you spend that money, and all you have to spend it on is skip tracing.
That's it.
And so is that kind of your main area? You like you said, you don't buy lists because, again, you're getting that information from the builder itself. Yeah. So you have the data in PropStream. Is there anything you plan to refine with that? Or, I mean, obviously if it's working, don't fix it, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in, if the process, if your process works, don't break it. Like,
right.
So I'm a huge advocate for that. And with that being said, I'm just going to double down on that. I'm going to hone in on that for sure and start actually building out a team. So I'm looking to actually get like at least 2 people. So I'm going to get 1, but I think I'm at max, I'm going to get 2, where they're just driving for dollars all the time for every single builder that I'm working with. So we're just going to do a deep dive for each local builder that we're working with, figuring out what it is that they're looking for and hone in specifically on their desired area and just start working deals that way. And again, the turnaround time for me with these deals are not really that long. These local builders, they're closing within 30 days and their this period is much shorter. So I'm seeing great success with that. So I'm gonna just double down with that.
I love it. One question I was going to ask in terms of what was I going to get to? Actually, I can't come up with the question right away, Tim. If you want to ask yours, because it was just something that I was just came up while you were talking.
I know we kind of covered it. For the list. So like someone would just purchase a vacant land list, but you covered kind of like driving for dollars. What are some other kind of tactics that you use to help market for land?
I'm gonna be honest with you, Tim. It's mainly just pulling lists pulling a list in a desired area that the builders is looking for and driving for dollars virtually. I don't overcomplicate the process at all. Not to say that there's not other things, but this is what I'm doing and what I'm seeing great success with. So there's not really other things that I'm looking into. I am cold calling, I am texting. But as far as like looking for other ways to source deals, I don't see any other ways right now. And the reason why is because if my builders is telling me what they're looking for, there's no other reason why I should be going about it another way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just defeating the purpose for me now. So I just focusing on exactly what they're looking for and just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to add partnering up with people, right? Like that's kind of another marketing trend that I know Chris Barks, talks about a lot. And something I've kind of also switched up in my business is just like, why would you, you have your process, but if you can split and do half the work, like, why would you not take that? So obviously you and I are working together. I know there's, you're partnering up with another person who's helping you out on the SMS side. And I'm sure other people have hit you up as well. And this is why the power of social media, to talk about what it is that you're doing. People are going to reach out like, hey, I have this land deal. Hey, I have this land deal. That's going to be another way to keep the momentum going, especially on those down times while you're waiting for other deals to close. But I know partnering up with people is the easiest way, quickest way to make quick money, basically. And you can really create a business model behind that.
Absolutely. And to your point, I'm actually glad you mentioned that, because it just sparked a memory in my head. I was just talking to Tim about this yesterday. So, what my intention is to actually do is leverage my network and my resources. And essentially, like, if other people are looking to get into the business, give them that list that my builder is looking at.
Right.
Purchasing, or they're looking into, and then allow them to go ahead and start sourcing deals. And that's another way which I'm going to start actually bringing in more revenue as well. It's just taking advantage of that, because I'll be honest with you, because of all this data that I'm bringing in, all these builders that I'm bringing in, I don't have the capacity, or at least the team yet, to even help them. And I told you guys, I plan on keeping my team very small and niched.
Right.
I'm still not going to have the capacity to serve all these builders. So the only way that I can see fit of me doing that is, bringing people inside of my business model and allowing them to take advantage of, my resources. And so that's exactly what my intentions is.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be waiting for that list in my inbox today. So send that over.
I got you.
I love that. So we're approaching the last 10 minutes. What's kind of some goals for you this year? I know we've talked about it personally, but what's some goals this year? And then, like, what do you see, like, long-term vision? Like, and again, we've talked about that too, but to kind of share with the audience.
Gotcha. So my biggest thing this year is to hone in exactly what I was just sharing with you guys. Being a resource to other people. Allowing people to come in and take advantage of my resource so that they can change their lives and do better for themselves. So that's one of my biggest goals this year. Social media is definitely one of my biggest go-tos. I had to take a step away from that just to focus in and hone in on my business. So now that I'm doing that and I'm slowly scaling things up, I want to bring people along that journey. So I'm not all the way there yet, but I understand the process and what I'm doing, and I'm slowly bringing up that momentum. And I genuinely want to take people with me along that journey. So that's one of my biggest goals. And then to answer your last question, where do I see myself in the next 5 to 10 years? Possibly doing bigger developments. Doing bigger developments for sure. Looking at bigger acres of parcels. Doing subdivisions and being able to sell those lands off to big tract home builders as well, because tract home builders, they love that. They love when you take raw land, do the entire entitlement process, and just sell them the land, able to just get in and start building.
They're ready to build right away.
Love that. So I would love to do that and take advantage of that opportunity, because there's not a lot of people really working in that space. There are people working into it, but not a lot.
Well, now they should, if they're listening to this, they really should be. But like you said, who's actually going to take action after listening in? But I mean, I think you and I have talked about that, and I know Tim, you're also kind of doing development as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that was our big conversation yesterday. Trying to bring Chuck into some of these bigger deals, and because I know kind of his vision and what he kind of wants to do. So getting him in the beginning stages of that, and just learning from each other on bigger development deals. So
absolutely. I do see we have a question here from Latifa. Shout out. How do you talk to sellers when you need a 1-year closing? I'm assuming on like one of those maybe a bigger deals. How do you go about that? I mean, usually sellers understand, especially if it's a large acreage, I'm assuming on land, but how do you go about having that conversation?
I'll go back to my builder and ask them exactly why they need the 1 year. And whatever they tell me, I'm gonna go back and relay that to the seller. And just
Right.
make it in layman's terms for them. So if the builder's telling you,
Mhm.
I need to close within a year because it's taking me this long. Entitlement takes about 6 months, and the process of doing this takes about whatever amount of days. You're just relaying that back to the seller. And eventually, even if the seller doesn't want to move forward with you at the moment, they're gonna realize that more and more people are gonna say the exact same thing. So it's your job to continuously follow up with them, and you following up with them is going to allow you to be, that go-to person that they're going to be like, you know what, Latifah's actually been following up with me. She's been very consistent. She's been telling me it's going to take some time. If I would have started this process the first time around, we'd have been at least 3 months into it, or even whatever
Right.
amount of time into it. Let me just go ahead and rock with you.
Absolutely. And I think it's just how you frame things. And we've talked about framing a lot as well. If you gather information from the builder, you can literally just relay and just frame it in a way of like, hey, I understand you really want to close, understand, but as you know, like the whole entitlement process, we have to do our due diligence. And it does take on average, due to the size of the lot or whatever, it does take about a year, and just kind of frame in a way it's like, hey, I'm on your side, I want to make this work, but like this is our process, and sort of educating sellers,
Right.
so that they understand like you're on their side, and you want to help them out. So I think that's awesome. Really really good question as well. Kind of ending on this, like, because again you've shared a lot, like what's kind of one thing you want to kind of leave the audience with, before we head out today?
Don't overcomplicate the process. One thing I will say, I believe any to everybody could get a deal done. Getting a deal done,
Yeah.
whether it's houses or land, is not hard. It's just staying consistent. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to consistently get deals every single day, but I can guarantee you, and I don't like guaranteeing things, but I can guarantee you that if you stay consistent with it throughout the whole year, you're going to close one deal. You have a follow up system, you stay consistent, you're reaching back out to people that you've already spoken to in January, you're still reaching out to them in August, September, you're going to get a deal done. That's for sure. Don't overcomplicate the process. There's really not a lot that goes into it. It's literally just reverse engineering the entire process, finding your builders, finding their criterias, and then pulling a list catered to what it is that they're looking for, and just start running it up. As I mentioned before, you really just need one big builder who's like purchasing multiple land, um, and you can just run up a bag. I have one local builder. He's not even a big builder. He said, "Hey Chuck, look, I'm looking to close 5 deals a month for the next 4 months. Bring me everything you got, everything." And literally, we're just reverse engineering it and working in the markets he's actively buying in, and getting deals done. I'm not overcomplicating the process. So go out there, drive for dollars. Go out there, pull a list only catering to what they're looking for. Don't be like, hey builder, I have this one, and it's not right in your market, but it's in another market. Would you be interested? Don't do that. Give them exactly what they're looking for, because you want to tell them and show them that you're being of service, of value to them. They love working with people.
Right.
I have plenty other builders. I have one builder right now who I was mentioning to you guys earlier when I did the process of driving for dollars. She's constantly asking me, because I'm currently in New York, hey Chuck, when are you coming to Florida? Like, I need to meet you. I love working with you. And the reason why she tells me that is because, you know, or why she says that to me is because she loves working with me, and I'm constantly bringing her deals in the area that she wants. It's always around the price that she's looking for. We're never going, that's what I love about it too. We're never going back and forth about numbers. So I'll be like, hey, look, I have this lead here. How much can you pay for this if you're interested? She'll tell me X amount of dollars. I'm like, all right, I'll let you know when this is ready. When it's ready, I get it on the contract. I send it to them. It's a done deal. And now what she's also doing is she's leveraging her audience So I'm actually getting a deal done with a client that she knows. She didn't want the deal. She said, I got somebody else who wants the deal. And I don't even need to pay her. That's the beauty of just connecting and networking with your builders and just being of service. So at the end of the day, that's what I would share with your audience. Be of service to your builders. Show them like, hey, look, I want to be of value to you. This is what I do, and this is and do exactly what you told them you're going to do.
Damn. I think
That's
mic
dope.
drop on that joint.
That is really dope.
Well, we gonna end it on that.
You're gonna have to go to Florida, bro.
No, you will.
I'm looking forward to it.
Love it. Well, hope you guys got a ton of value out of this interview. I'm telling you guys, like, people are gonna land on like how to wholesale land. This is gonna pop up, and I guarantee people are gonna reach out. How can people reach out to you if they're interested, if they have a deal, if they have questions, whatever the case may be?
You can reach out to me on IG. I am McEwan.
And then what markets you're in?
I'm in Florida. I'm in Florida right now, and I'm slowly shifting over to Colorado. So right now I'm just heavily in Florida. Reach out to me, and then I'll be more than happy to, give you some criteria. If you're looking to get started and work, at least take advantage of my network. I can give you some criteria and let you know, hey, look, this is what my builders is building in. And you can take advantage of that. Or if you have any questions, you want to start doing things your own as well. I'm giving a lot of value, a lot of free, valuable information, actionable information on my Instagram. So you could go there and just, give me a follow and reach out as well.
Absolutely. And like Andre said, join the youth.
Absolutely.
Best network program.
That's right. Best network ever.
Love it. Well, I hope, again, thank you guys so much, Chuck. Appreciate you, bro. I know we'll connect afterwards.
Appreciate you, bro.
But appreciate you hopping on and sharing value. Wishing you super success for the rest of the year and onwards. And again, looking forward to, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we may close our first deal together. Fingers crossed. No hiccups.
Oh,
but
we closing that. Don't do that.
It's set.
Let's
it's
go.
Scheduled,
Let's
but,
go.
You know how it goes.
Let's
but,
go.
We've literally just talking about it, like literally putting out there, manifesting it. Like, hey, we got to do a deal together. And so this is kind of the power we were talking about, being of service for one another. And us three have been talking about also like doing big development deals as well, and like following that play. So it's only up from here. So again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to chat with us. But for you guys watching, hope you guys enjoyed, got a ton of value. Make sure to follow Chuck at I am McEwan on IG, and to get some land value. He's dropping videos every day. We're making sure of that. We're on an accountability group, ensuring we post every day, or almost every day, 6 days a week. But if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to him. And we're on every Wednesdays, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And make sure you tune in for next week. We have some really exciting guests as well over the next month or so. But hope you guys got a lot out of this. Have a great rest of your week, and catch y'all next week.
Thank you guys for having me. Peace.
There you go.